She texted, "I can't date an unemployed loser," and dumped me the day I was laid off. She didn't know I had a $1,000 severance package and a better job lined up. 6 weeks later, she saw my new car and texted, "I believe in second chances." My reply destroyed her. I never thought the worst day of my life would lead to something better. But that Thursday morning, when I got the call from the director of operations, I knew it was coming. You don't spend 8 years in a company, working your ass off, only to be blindsided like this. But when HR is in the conference room, you know it's never good. They told me my position was being eliminated. I was stunned, but I wasn't devastated. It felt like an end, but not the end. I saw it coming. The department had been losing contracts, budgets were tight, and my boss had already jumped ship. I had been quietly updating my resume for months, interviewing behind the scenes, just waiting for the right opportunity to show up. When they handed me my severance agreement, my mind raced through the numbers. 16 weeks of pay plus unused PTO. It was insane. I walked out with a box of my things and a check for over $200,000 after taxes. My heart was a little heavy, but I was ready for the next chapter. I had savings, a new job offer waiting, and I was about to change my life. I called Sarah, my girlfriend of 18 months. We had talked about moving in together soon. I thought this would be the time to lean on her, tell her the news, and let her comfort me. I dialed her number, still in the parking lot of the building. "Hey, you Freed, I need to talk to you," I said, trying to sound casual. "I'm at lunch with my sister," she responded. Her voice sounded distant, but I brushed it off. "What's up?" "I got laid off this morning," I said, trying to keep it light. There was a long silence, too long. Then she said, "Are you serious right now?" "Yeah, it's been rough, but I'll explain when I get home." "I can't do this," she said, her voice colder than I had ever heard it. "Can't do what?" I asked, my heart starting to race. Something didn't feel right. I can't be with someone who doesn't have their life together. I need stability. I need a partner who can provide. I almost laughed. "Babe, it happens. I've got savings." She cut me off, her words sharp. "Stop. Just stop. I've been thinking about this anyway. You're not where I need you to be. I want a house, kids, security. Not someone starting over at 32. Starting over." My voice dropped. "I'm not starting over. I'm breaking up with you. I need someone established, someone successful." She paused, and when she spoke again, her words hit me like a punch. Not an unemployed loser. I could feel my jaw tighten. That hit differently. We'd been talking about a future together, and in a matter of seconds, she was gone. "Okay then," I said, not even trying to hide the disappointment in my voice. "It's nothing personal. I just can't waste more time on someone who might not work out. Good luck with everything." She hung up. I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes, just staring ahead at the empty parking lot, trying to make sense of what had just happened. 18 months together, and she just discarded me because I lost my job, not because of who I was, but because of what I wasn't at that moment. I wasn't angry. I wasn't devastated, just disappointed. It was a wake-up call. I saw who she really was. I cracked open a beer, went home, and opened my email. The official offer letter from the company I'd been interviewing with was sitting there, ready to go. Start date 6 weeks out, salary 40% higher than my old job once I saw the full breakdown. Things were looking up, but first I had to get through this. Through the surprise, the rejection, and the bitter sting of being judged for something I couldn't control. She wasn't the last person to leave. The severance package hit my bank account like a punch to the gut. $200,000 after taxes. It wasn't anything I had earned, but it was more than enough to keep me afloat while I transitioned. That's when the gravity of the situation set in. The emotional weight of the job loss, the breakup, and now this sudden windfall all collided. I felt like I should be celebrating, but all I could do was sit in silence. I spent the next few hours trying to focus on what mattered. I didn't want to wallow in self-pity, so I turned to what I knew best: planning. I knew this was temporary. I wasn't going to let this layoff define me. There was a better job waiting for me, and I needed to make sure I didn't mess this up. The email was sitting there, waiting for me to open it. The offer letter. A senior director role at a competing company. The salary was a 40% increase from my last job, and the benefits were better too. I'd heard rumors about the position before, but this was the official offer? The kind of job that would give me the stability and recognition I needed. It was everything I wanted and more. I called my friend Steve to run through the numbers with him, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. He was a finance guy, always good at looking at the long-term picture. "You need to take it, man," he said after a few minutes of silence. "That's a huge bump. Plus, the timing's perfect. Don't overthink it. You've got this." "Yeah, I know," I replied. "That's just this whole thing. The layoff, Sarah. It all feels like too much." Steve chuckled lightly. "You'll be fine. You're not defined by your job, Wes. You know that." I hung up feeling better, but I still couldn't shake the disappointment. I had to face it. Sarah hadn't been the partner I thought she was. She didn't see me for who I was. She saw the paycheck. And when that paycheck disappeared, so did she. I spent the next few days running errands, taking care of all the little things that needed to be done. Paid off my car, paid off my credit cards, and set up a high-yield savings account. It was strange, quiet. I wasn't used to having so much time on my hands. I had no one to talk to about my day, no one to bounce ideas off of. Sarah and I used to do that all the time. I missed the routine, the partnership, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't miss her. Not really. I missed the idea of us, the future we had talked about. The house, the kids, the life we were supposed to build together. But it wasn't real. It was just a dream she had, one that involved me having a stable job, a house, and everything she wanted. She couldn't see past that. When things got hard, she threw me away. 1 week after I'd been laid off, I bought a new car. It wasn't anything crazy, just a certified pre-owned Tesla Model 3. I'd always wanted one, but never had the money for it. Now, with the severance, I could afford it without breaking a sweat. The new job was still a few weeks away, but I was feeling good. I drove it around for a few hours that Saturday afternoon, feeling the smooth acceleration, the quiet hum of the electric engine. It was like a weight had been lifted, and the car seemed to represent the fresh start I was craving. I pulled into a coffee shop near my old apartment, a place I used to go with Sarah. I hadn't been back in months. When I walked inside, I saw her, Sarah. She was sitting at an outdoor table with her sister. I froze for a second when I saw her, but I didn't panic. I didn't turn around and walk away like I thought I might. No, I walked inside, ordered my coffee, and then walked out to my car. She saw me first. Her eyes widened when she saw the car. Her jaw dropped. I kept my head down, walked past her, and got into the car. She called out to me. "Nice car," she said, her voice flat, but I could hear the hint of surprise. "Thanks," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I wasn't going to play her game. "Wait, can we talk for a second?" she asked, standing up. Her sister seemed uncomfortable, glancing between the two of us. I sighed, rolling my eyes. "Make it quick." She moved toward me, her steps hesitant, unsure. "Wow, a Tesla. How did you severance package?" she asked, giving me a tight smile. I nodded, not giving her the satisfaction of telling her everything. "Used it smart. That's great. Really happy for you." "Yeah," she said. "So, what are you doing now?" "Still looking." I smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Start my new job Monday. Senior director role. Better than the old place." Her face twisted in a strange mixture of shock, regret, and panic. It was all happening so fast. She didn't know what to say next. She probably thought this was going to be some romantic reunion, but I wasn't interested. "That's incredible." "Wow," she said, struggling to find the right words. "Look, I know we left things badly," she continued, her voice softening. "I was emotional. I didn't mean to hurt you. I made a mistake." I looked her straight in the eye. "Yeah, you did. But it's cool. Worked out for both of us. I've been thinking about you too. Just not the way you think." Her hand reached out to me, as if to pull me back into her orbit, but I stepped back, shaking my head. "I don't date people who think love comes with conditions," I said. "You showed me who you were when things got hard." Her face flushed. She took a step back. "I didn't mean it like that." "You did," I said firmly. "But it's fine. We're done. I'm done." Her sister shifted in her seat, looking down at her phone as if it were the most interesting thing in the world. Sarah stood there, stunned, as I got into my car and drove off. I glanced in the rearview mirror. She was still standing there, her face red with embarrassment. It felt good, honestly. The texts started coming in the day after the coffee shop incident. I didn't respond to Sarah's message, the one where she'd apologized in a way that felt rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. But that didn't stop her. Every day there was something. A text, a call, sometimes 2 or 3 in a row. I let them pile up. I didn't need to read them. I already knew what they said. I knew how this would go. I was fine at first, dismissing it as desperation, maybe even a little guilt. But then it started to get under my skin. Not because I cared about her, far from it, but because of the story she was spinning, the narrative she was telling everyone else. Her best friend, Danielle, sent me a text one afternoon, and I could tell she wasn't reaching out of sympathy. It was a friendly check-in, but the tone was off. "Hey, just wanted to check on you. I heard what happened." "That was really harsh," Danielle texted. "I'm good," I replied, keeping it short. No need for a long conversation. "Well, she's telling everyone you're broke and jobless. Just wanted you to know, people aren't buying it." "We know you," Danielle added, almost as if she was trying to protect me, but I knew better. This wasn't about protecting me. It was about Sarah needing to feel like the victim. She needed to justify her actions. She needed to spin it all into a story where she was the one who had to make a hard choice. "Appreciate it," I responded, then let my phone sit for the rest of the day. The thing about losing a job is that people always assume it's a reflection of who you are. They don't know about the severance. They don't know that I was already interviewing, that I had a better job lined up. People don't get that life is just a series of ups and downs, and one layoff doesn't mean you've lost everything. But Sarah, she saw it differently. She saw me as a failure. The next few weeks were strange. I was still adjusting to this new rhythm, waking up whenever, no deadlines, no meetings to rush to. It felt foreign at first, like I was on some extended vacation I hadn't asked for. But then, the offer letter from my new company came through. I signed it that day, locking in a start date 6 weeks away. I knew that was it. I had a new beginning in front of me, and nothing would derail it. Still, the texts kept coming. Sarah's friends, her cousins, even her aunt, all trying to get a message to me. Everyone had something to say about how things went down. They all seemed so concerned about what I might be feeling, as if I hadn't heard the message loud and clear the first time. "You're not where I need you to be." The words echoed in my head every time I saw one of their names pop up on my phone. And then, 5 weeks into my unemployment, I bought a new car. It wasn't anything crazy, just a certified pre-owned Tesla Model 3. It was a little indulgent, I'll admit, but I had the money and a new job on the horizon. Why not? The day I picked it, I drove it around for a while, savoring the way it felt on the road, smooth and effortless. It was a sign that things were finally moving in the right direction. I wasn't going to be stuck forever. I wasn't going to be the guy who lost his job and never recovered. I stopped by a coffee shop near my old apartment, not to see anyone, just to grab a drink and enjoy the quiet. But as soon as I walked through the door, I saw her. Sarah, sitting outside, sipping her coffee, her sister beside her. I froze for a second, unsure what to do. Then I made my decision. I walked inside, ordered my coffee, and went back out to the car. I wasn't sure what I expected when I got outside, but I certainly didn't expect the look on her face when she saw me walking toward my new car. First, it was disbelief. Then, recognition. Her jaw dropped. I didn't acknowledge her at first. I slid into the driver's seat, took a deep breath, and started the engine. She called out after me. "Nice car," she said, her voice oddly flat. "Thanks," I said, keeping my tone even, not giving her any room for anything else. "Wait, can we talk for a second?" she asked, standing up and stepping toward me. I rolled my eyes, not in anger, but in a kind of resigned disbelief. "Make it quick," I said. I wasn't going to give her any more of my time. She stepped closer, looking at me like she was trying to figure out if I was really the person she thought I was. "Wow, a Tesla. That's amazing. How did you severance package?" she asked, her voice trying to sound happy, but I could hear the edge of something else. "Used it smart," I replied, keeping it simple. There was no need to explain any further. She looked down at the ground a moment, gathering herself, then looked back at me. "So, what are you doing now?" she asked, her voice tentative. I gave a tight smile. "Start my new job Monday. Senior director role. Better than the old place." She went silent for a second, then her face twisted, caught between shock and regret. "That's incredible," she said, almost in disbelief. "I know," I said. "It worked out for both of us." "I've been thinking about you," she started, her voice quieter now. "About us. I made a mistake." I shook my head. "You made a choice." "A calculated one?" I said, my voice firm. "I'm not interested in talking anymore." Her face went red, but she didn't stop. "I didn't mean—" "You did?" I cut in, not giving her a chance to backpedal. "But it's fine. I'm done." She stood there, her sister looking awkwardly at her phone as if it could offer her an escape. I didn't care. "I'm being clear. We're done. I don't want to talk. Not now, not ever." She stood there staring, but I didn't wait for her to say anything else. I got into the car, shifted into drive, and left her standing there, watching me. The feeling in my chest wasn't anger, wasn't sadness. It was relief. Finally, I could move on. I drove home that day feeling lighter than I had in months. I hadn't expected to run into Sarah, but when I did, I didn't flinch. I'd closed the door on that chapter, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had control over my life again. I had more time than I knew what to do with, so I threw myself into the next few weeks, preparing for the new job. The job search, the stress, the breakup, all of it felt like it was in the past. And while I was enjoying the freedom, there was something in the back of my mind that kept me on edge. It wasn't the fear of the unknown. No, I was comfortable with the uncertainty. What bothered me was the nagging sense of unfinished business. I didn't expect Sarah to just let go. I didn't expect her to beg, but I also didn't expect her to fade into the background. I guess deep down I had known that the whole "I need stability" line was a facade. Stability wasn't what she needed. What she needed was someone to give her the life she wanted, someone to fill the gaps in her dream. Like a nice paycheck, a house in the suburbs, maybe a dog or two. But what she didn't need was me, not when things got tough. Still, the texts came. First, it was a message from her best friend, Danielle. It was short and sweet, just checking in on me. Then came the longer ones. Sarah's been telling people that you're jobless and struggling. It's just not true, right? She wanted reassurance, I guess, but I didn't give it to her. Not that day, not ever. I didn't reply to Danielle either. I didn't need to explain myself. What Sarah didn't realize, and what I hoped her friends and family would eventually see, was that I wasn't going to be a chapter she could erase from her life just because she couldn't deal with the idea of me being unemployed. It was more than that. It was about who I was, not what I did for a living. Week 3 passed, and I was busy. I had an interview with another company just to check my market value, and of course, they offered me a job as well, a better offer. But I stuck with my decision to move forward with the company that had already sent me the formal offer. I wasn't in this for the money. I was in this for the respect. I wanted to prove to myself and to Sarah that I didn't need to be defined by my job. One Saturday, I did something for myself. I went to a dealership and bought the car I'd always wanted. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a certified pre-owned Tesla Model 3. I figured it was time to reward myself. For the past few years, I'd been putting off all the little luxuries I wanted, thinking they weren't practical. But now, with the severance, with the new job, I could afford it. It wasn't about showing off, it was about making a statement to myself. When I picked up the car, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: pride. It wasn't the kind of pride that came from external validation, like the way Sarah might have appreciated the car. No, it was pride in myself for getting through what I had, for making a comeback, for doing things on my own terms. The next morning, I took the Tesla for a spin, letting it glide over the smooth pavement. It was an unusually warm, sunny day, the kind where the air feels fresh and the sky looks bluer than usual. I found myself near my old apartment, the place where Sarah and I used to talk about our future, where we made plans and dreams. I parked at a coffee shop just down the street. I didn't expect anyone to be there, but of course, I wasn't that lucky. I stepped inside, grabbed my coffee, and when I walked out, there she was, Sarah, sitting at a table outside with her sister. It was like a scene I had played over in my head 100 times, only now I was calm. Not bitter, not angry, just detached. She didn't notice me at first. I stood by the car for a few seconds, letting her realize. When she looked up and saw me, she froze for a second. Her eyes went wide when they landed on the car. Then she saw me walking toward it. Her jaw dropped. I didn't say anything. I opened the door, slid into the driver's seat, and started the engine. The car hummed to life. She called out, her voice just above a whisper. "Nice car," she said, as though she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. "Thanks," I replied, giving her a nod. Then the inevitable, "Wait, can we talk for a second?" She stood up, her sister following her movements like she was unsure of what was about to happen. I sighed quietly, letting the moment sit with me for a beat before responding. "Make it quick." She walked toward me, trying to gather herself, but her voice was shaky. "Wow, a Tesla. That's amazing. How did you severance package?" she asked, her tone trying to stay upbeat, but the cracks were visible. "Used it smart," I said, keeping it short. I wasn't interested in explaining how I had invested the rest of the severance, how I had set up my life. I wasn't going to give her a window into my decisions. She didn't deserve that. I don't know what to say," she said, her face scrunching up as she tried to keep it together. "I've been thinking about us, and I made a mistake. I was scared, and I didn't know how to deal with things." I shook my head, the words coming out more firmly than I expected. "No, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, a calculated one, and I'm not interested in talking about it." Her eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered, almost pleading. "It doesn't matter now," I said, cutting her off. "We're done, and I'm done." Her sister stood up, looking uncomfortable, her eyes darting to the ground. But Sarah didn't leave. She lingered for a second, then finally said, "You're being cruel." I gave her a long look, my voice steady. "I'm being clear. We're done. Don't call me again." I climbed into the car, slammed the door, and drove off. I didn't look back, but I knew deep down I'd never look back. I was done with her. And now I was finally moving on. The texts from Sarah kept coming. After I drove off that day, I expected it to stop, but it didn't. Every day, there was a new message. She didn't seem to understand that I had made my decision. She didn't seem to care. The first text came the evening after our encounter in the parking lot, like a last attempt to claw back into my life. "I'm sorry," it read. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I've been thinking about everything, and I know I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would be. More of the same. More of her trying to manipulate me back into her world because she had lost something she now saw as valuable. She hadn't cared about me when I was struggling. When I was laid off, she was quick to throw me aside. Now all of a sudden she wanted me back because I had a car and a paycheck. The next day, another text came in. This time the tone had shifted. It was more pleading. Please, let's talk. I miss us. I was wrong about everything. I shook my head as I read it, sitting at my desk, getting ready to start the workday. It had been a week since I'd received the offer letter for my new job, and that part of my life was moving forward. I had no time for her, no time for someone who had so quickly discarded me when things got difficult. Then came the phone call 24 hours after the last text. I let it ring. I knew who it was. When I didn't answer, the messages started again, pouring in as though nothing had changed. I don't understand why you're ignoring me, she wrote. You're really going to treat me like this after everything we had? You used to be better than this. I deleted the message without reading the rest of it. She wasn't the same person I had met. The girl I had loved was gone, replaced by someone who would only love me when it was convenient for her. And that wasn't love, that was opportunism. 3 days passed. No texts, no calls, just silence. For the first time in a while, I thought it might be over. But then she showed up at my work. I was sitting in the break room, scrolling through emails when I heard my phone buzz. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before picking it up. Hello, I said, already knowing what this would be. Is this Wesley? A voice I recognized instantly. I gritted my teeth. It was Sarah's voice, but it wasn't her voice anymore. It was the same voice, but it was desperate. She was putting on a mask. Wesley, she said, her voice wavering slightly. I'm outside. I was hoping you could come out and talk to me. I didn't even have to think about it. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the conversation settle. No, I told you we're done. I don't want to talk. Not now, not ever. Her voice faltered. Please, Wesley, I just need 5 minutes. I miss you, I'm sorry. I closed my eyes, rubbing my forehead. You don't get to just come back because things are better for me now. You don't get to decide when I'm worth your time. I'm not doing this with you anymore. There was a long silence, and then she hung up. I thought it would end there. But she wasn't done yet. The next evening, as I was heading out of the office, I walked to my car and froze. Her car was parked a few spots away from mine, right in the middle of the lot. I could see her in the driver's seat. Staring straight ahead, I stopped dead in my tracks. My stomach turned. I wasn't sure if I should confront her, or just get in my car and drive away. It was becoming clear that this wasn't a stop unless I did something about it. I couldn't keep letting her show up in my life, in my space, as if nothing had happened. I walked over to her car, knocking on her window. She rolled it down slowly, looking up at me. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. I just don't understand why you're doing this, she said. Wu had something real. I looked down at her, my voice steady, but cold. You had a fantasy. You wanted someone who could fit into your perfect little life, and I wasn't it. I'm not the guy who's going to fear mold Sarah. Not anymore. I was scared, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't know what to do. I didn't think I could trust you. Well, you should have trusted me when I needed you, I replied. But instead, you walked away. And now you want back in because you think I've got it all together. I'm not the same person you walked away from. She looked at me like she was going to say something, but the words caught in her throat. I didn't wait for her to speak again. I turned and walked away, leaving her there in the parking lot, her car still running. I got into my car, and this time when I drove away, I didn't feel the need to look back. The weight of the past was finally lifting, piece by piece. The next few days were eerily quiet. No messages, no phone calls. I thought maybe she had finally understood. But then, a week later, I ran into her at a work happy hour. It wasn't planned. I wasn't expecting her. It was one of those random events where everyone from the office was invited, and I showed up to meet some colleagues and relax after a long week. But there she was, standing across the room with her friends, scanning the crowd. She spotted me immediately, her eyes locking onto mine like she had been looking for me. I could feel her move toward me before I even heard her voice. Hey, she said, a forced smile on her face. What a surprise. You didn't tell me you'd be here. I wasn't about to let her think this was anything but what it was. Why would I? I asked flatly, not even trying to pretend we were friends. She laughed awkwardly, looking around at my coworkers who were now all watching the interaction unfold. Right, of course. Just thought I'd run into you somewhere. One of my coworkers raised his eyebrows. Is that your ex? He asked, looking at me. Yep, I said, not hiding the sarcasm. She dumped me. Now she wants me back. Her face went white then red as she realized what everyone had overheard. It wasn't going to go the way she expected. Can we talk outside? She said, her voice tight, now trying to regain some semblance of control. No, I said, shaking my head. We're done. She walked away, but not before casting one last glance at me. It was over. I had said everything I needed to say, and now there was nothing left. The next few weeks felt like a blur. I was getting settled into my new job, trying to adjust to the rhythm of this new life. It wasn't the same as before. I wasn't just punching a clock for a paycheck. No, this time it felt different. There was a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years, and with every passing day, I could feel the old me slowly fading away. The guy who had let people walk all over him. The guy who had cared more about what others thought than his own peace of mind. I should have felt free, but something in the back of my mind gnawed at me. I had put the breakup behind me. I had even told myself I was done with Sarah. And yet, I couldn't escape the feeling that she hadn't truly let go. Every now and then, I would see her name pop up on my phone or hear from one of her friends. Danielle had texted me days after the incident at the happy hour. She's been really upset. She says she misses you and wants to apologize for everything. She regrets what happened. It was the same old story. She couldn't take responsibility for her own actions, so she was spinning it to make herself look like the victim. I'd learned the hard way that when someone can't take accountability for their mistakes, it's a dead end. There was no going back. I didn't need closure. I had already given myself that. But Sarah needed to feel like the world owed her something. I didn't respond to Danielle. I didn't need to explain myself to anyone. I had made my decision, and I wasn't about to waste any more time revisiting the past. But that didn't stop Sarah. She wouldn't leave me alone. A few days later, I was walking out of my office building, heading to my car when I saw her. She was parked in the lot across the street, her car just sitting there, like she was waiting for something, or someone. Me. I had to admit, a part of me was tempted to go over and confront her. To ask her what the hell she thought she was doing showing up like that. But I resisted. I didn't need to do that. Instead, I walked to my car, trying to ignore the pounding in my chest. I was done. I had already made it clear that I didn't want anything to do with her anymore. I didn't owe her an explanation. I started my car and drove off, but the feeling lingered. Was she really that desperate? Did she think that by showing up in my life like this, it would somehow make things better? I tried not to think about it. I had too much going on. The job was demanding. I had a new team to manage, new responsibilities, and for the first time in a while, I felt like I was actually living life for myself. But then she took things further. I didn't see it coming, not in the way she did it. I was sitting at home, scrolling through my emails one evening when my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, expecting another work-related message. Instead, it was a number I didn't recognize. "Hi Wesley," the text read. "It's Sarah. I know we haven't talked in a while, but I've been thinking about you. Can we talk? I've been trying to reach you." I felt the anger start to bubble up, hot and fast. She hadn't just respected my boundaries, she was now blatantly ignoring them. My thumb hovered over the screen, but I didn't respond. Instead, I stared at the message, feeling the weight of the situation. I didn't want to play this game with her anymore. I wasn't some lost puppy she could call whenever she felt guilty. She had made her choice. I got up from the couch and walked to the kitchen to make a drink. The weight of everything seemed to hit me all at once. How could she think that after everything, I would just take her back? How could she assume that I was still the same guy she had left behind, the one who didn't know his worth? I finished my drink and tossed the phone onto the counter, determined not to let her mess with my peace anymore. But the next morning, another text came through. Then another, each one more desperate than the last. "I miss you, Wesley," it read. "I know I was wrong. Please let me explain. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." I laughed bitterly. It was textbook. She wasn't apologizing for what she did. She was apologizing because things weren't working out the way she'd imagined. She wanted a second chance, but not because she realized the error of her ways. No, it was because she missed the life I had given her, the stability, the security, the paycheck. The truth hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't love. It was convenience. I went about my day, but the thoughts kept creeping in. I didn't respond to her messages, didn't give her the satisfaction. But as the day wore on, I could feel the weight of it growing. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She was still out there, lurking, trying to worm her way back into my life. And that's when I realized it wasn't going to stop unless I did something about it. I went to the office the next day, checked in with my manager, and wrapped up a few things. But in the back of my mind, I was already planning. I was done waiting for her to respect my boundaries. It was time to take control of the situation. I scheduled an appointment with a lawyer. I knew this was the next step. She wasn't going to stop, and if I didn't act now, I'd be forced to keep dealing with her nonsense for months, maybe years. I had to protect myself. The lawyer was sharp, professional, and didn't mince words. After hearing the situation, he was clear. I had grounds for a harassment case. "It's time to put a stop to this," he said. "You have the right to be left alone." And so the decision was made. I was filing for a protection order. I wasn't just doing it for me. I was doing it for my future, for my peace of mind. Sarah had already shown me who she was. Now it was time to show her who I was. And I wasn't the same person I used to be. The protection order was in motion. I'd filed the paperwork, gathered the evidence, texts, photos, witness statements, and now I was waiting. The process felt surreal. I had never imagined it would get to this point, but every time I thought about what had happened, every time I remembered Sarah showing up at my apartment or at my office, I knew this was the only way to stop her. The day of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse with a sense of finality. I didn't feel scared or nervous. No, I felt resolute. This wasn't about seeking revenge. It wasn't even about punishing Sarah. This was about making sure I could move on. This was about protecting myself from someone who had no regard for my boundaries. The courtroom was quiet. My lawyer and I sat in the front, facing the judge, while Sarah and her mother sat a few rows behind us. I could feel Sarah's eyes on me, and every now and then, she would glance at her mother, trying to gather strength. But she didn't know how much strength I had gained since the day she left me. When the judge called our case, I stood up, holding the folder with all the evidence. The room was calm, almost clinical, but I could feel the weight of everything that had led me to this point. Sarah's lawyer stood first, trying to argue that this was all a misunderstanding. He spun a story that made it seem like I was the one overreacting. But I wasn't going to let her narrative be the one that stuck. The judge looked at me, and for the first time, I felt a calm certainty as I spoke. "Your Honor," I began, my voice clear, "I've asked her repeatedly to leave me alone. She has shown up at my home, at my workplace, and has contacted me multiple times after I told her not to. I have not initiated any of this contact. I've simply asked her to respect my boundaries." I handed over the folder with all the documentation, texts, photos of her car parked outside my apartment building, a record of the multiple calls to my work. The judge took a few moments to look through everything. Her expression shifted as she reviewed the evidence. The air in the room felt thicker, like everyone was holding their breath. "Maram," the judge said, turning to Sarah, "how many times have you contacted the petitioner after he asked you stop?" Sarah stood up, her face flushed, her voice shaky. I've made mistakes," she said, glancing at her lawyer, who didn't seem to know how to respond. "I didn't mean to cause him harm. I wanted him back. I didn't know what else to do." The judge didn't respond her apology. Instead, she turned to Sarah's lawyer. "Counsel, your client has contacted him multiple times. She has ignored his request to cease contact. I see no evidence of mutual communication, and this behavior clearly falls under the definition of harassment. Do you have anything to add?" The lawyer didn't respond quickly. He shuffled through his papers, but it was clear he knew it was over. There was no defense for what Sarah had done. The judge looked up from the papers, her voice firm. "I'm granting the temporary protection order. You are to have no further contact with the petitioner. No calls, no texts, no messages through any other means. You are not to come within 500 feet of his residence or workplace." I could hear Sarah gasp behind me. Her mother looked shocked, and for a moment I thought she might try to say something, but she didn't. She just sat there, her hands clenched in her lap. The judge continued, "This order will remain in effect for 1 year. After that, we'll review the situation." "Do you understand, ma'am?" Sarah's voice cracked when she answered, "Yes, Your Honor." The judge nodded, then turned to me. "You're free to go. The order will be signed and sent to you shortly." I stood up, a wave of relief washing over me. This wasn't just the legal end of the situation. It was the emotional end. This was me taking control. I wasn't going to let anyone, especially not Sarah, disrupt my peace anymore. As I walked out of the courtroom, I could hear Sarah's mother trying to say something to me. I didn't look back. I had done what I needed to do. I left the courthouse with a sense of finality, but also with a feeling I hadn't had in months: freedom. I had stood my ground. I had asserted my boundaries. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could finally breathe. I went back to my apartment that evening, feeling a calmness that hadn't been there before. There was no more anxiety. No more wondering if Sarah would show up again. No more waiting for the next message, the next call. It was done. A few days later, I received a letter from the courthouse confirming the protection order. It was official. Sarah had been legally barred from contacting me. She couldn't show up at my apartment or my workplace anymore. I felt an incredible sense of closure. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about taking control of my life again, setting the boundary I should have set months ago. I went out with some friends that weekend, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. I wasn't weighed down by the past. I wasn't defined by the breakup or the way Sarah had treated me. I was just Wesley, moving forward, and for the first time, I wasn't looking back. It's been a few weeks since the hearing, and things have settled down in a way I hadn't expected. The silence is louder than the noise ever was. It's peaceful. I've moved into my new rhythm, my new job, my new apartment. Everything is different now. Everything is better. I remember the night after the hearing, sitting in my apartment, staring at my phone. Sarah hadn't contacted me since the court order went into effect, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still waiting for something. Maybe an apology, maybe an explanation. But deep down, I knew that wasn't coming. Not from her. I'd learned that Sarah wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry it didn't work out the way she expected. She wasn't sorry for walking away from me when I needed her. She wasn't sorry for seeing me as less than because I lost my job. She was sorry I had changed and become someone she couldn't control. That night, as I settled onto the couch with a beer, I thought about what the future held. I had so much more than I had before, more respect for myself, more stability, and more clarity than I'd ever had. The protection order wasn't revenge. It wasn't about getting back at her. It was about reclaiming my life, my peace, my dignity, and that was all I needed. A few days after the hearing, I ran into an old friend from college, Tim. He was one of those guys who never seemed to change, always upbeat, always on the go. He'd heard about the whole mess with Sarah, and when we bumped into each other at a bar, he couldn't help but ask about it. "You're looking good, man," he said, clapping me on the back as I walked in. "I heard about Sarah. That whole situation was crazy." I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Yeah, it was. But I'm good now, moving on." "Good for you," he said, taking a sip of his beer. "I knew you'd come out on top. You've always had that in you. Glad to see it." It felt good to hear that. It felt good to know people saw the real me, not the version of me she had decided I was. I wasn't just moving on from Sarah. I was moving on from the past, from the version of myself that let others define him. I wasn't looking for validation anymore. I wasn't looking for approval from anyone. I didn't need it. And then there was her, someone I hadn't expected to meet in the midst of all this. Her name was Megan, and I met her through a mutual friend at a dinner party a few weeks ago. She was different, not in the way that made me immediately think she was the one, but in the way that she seemed to see me for who I really was, not for what I could offer. We'd been texting, talking, getting to know each other, and it felt we were taking it slow, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I didn't need to rush anything. No pressure. Just two people seeing if there was something there. And the best part, she never asked me what I made. She never cared about my job, or my car, or how much money I had in the bank. She was interested in me, Wesley, the real me. We had our first coffee date that weekend. We talked for 3 hours, and it was the easiest conversation I'd had in a long time. We talked about everything: books, movies, random childhood memory. She collected vintage postcards, which I thought was a cool and quirky hobby. We talked about travel, our favorite cities, the places we wanted to go. She didn't bring up my past or ask anything uncomfortable. She just let me be me. When we said goodbye, she hugged me, and I could tell she meant it. There was no game, no hidden agenda, just two people connecting. It felt refreshing. I wasn't rushing into anything. I wasn't ready to make promises. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this could be the start of something good. But if not, I was okay with that too. I was learning to live for myself, not for anyone else's expectations. I checked my phone as I got in my car and started driving home. There was a text from Sarah, just one line: "I hope you're happy. You ruined everything we could have had." I didn't even open it. Instead, I hit the block button. I didn't need her words to pull me back into her world. I was finally free. Free of the past. Free of her. Free of the idea that I was worth something only when things were perfect. I drove home, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. The kind of calm that comes when you know you're no longer running from your past. I didn't have to be anyone's idea of success. I didn't have to prove anything. I had already proved it to myself. I was worthy. I was enough. And that was all that mattered. A few days later, I got a message from Megan. She said she was looking forward to seeing me again. I smiled, texting her back, "Same here." As I set my phone down, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, a sense of peace. It wasn't about the car, the job, or the money. It was about knowing I had value just as I was. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.